Hello viewers, once again welcome back to our lesson on social and environmental studies in the upper basic level. Once again I am Jere Bajo. Now our topic today is going to be tropical diseases in the Gambia, and specifically malaria as one of the tropical diseases in the Gambia. Now malaria is a common disease in tropical Africa. It is a disease that is common in most of the African countries, especially in the Gambia. This is a disease that normally kills a lot of people, especially children and pregnant women, because of their low immune system to fight against the disease. Now this malaria is transmitted by a female Anopheles mosquito that picks the Plasmodium parasites from different places, example in stagnant water, dirty places, etc. and etc. Malaria is spread by a bacteria parasite called Plasmodium parasite, transmitted through mosquito bites. Malaria is spread by a bacteria called the Plasmodium parasite. This Plasmodium parasite is transmitted through mosquito bites, but not all mosquitoes. Remember, it is the female Anopheles mosquito that can transmit the malaria parasite. One of the problems that malaria can cause is anemia, which is low blood that can be due to malaria, especially in children. Now here are the pictures of some types of mosquitoes on human skin. As you can see here, the mosquitoes are sucking, and through this is how they transmit the Plasmodium parasites to the person. You can see the other picture here. The mosquito is trying to suck the blood, and during this sucking process, that's where it will deposit the parasite into the person and you become sick, especially when your immune system or your antibodies cannot fight against the parasite at that time. Now, places where mosquitoes can lay their eggs. Remember, they lay their eggs in order to multiply. When these eggs hatches, new ones or the young ones developed, which also grew into matured ones. They can lay their eggs in stagnant water. That means the water that doesn't run, it stays at one place. Mosquitoes can lay their eggs in those places. Swampy areas, especially where people cultivate crops like rice. In those swampy areas, because they are always having water logging or they are always having moisture, this is why mosquitoes targeted those areas also in order to lay their eggs. Polluted water, the water which is polluted, mosquitoes can lay their eggs in those places also. Another places are, they can lay their eggs in pools, ponds, and also streams. They can also lay their eggs on uncovered containers. Like if you place a pot which is not covered, mosquitoes can use that pot as a breeding place, especially when that pot or a cup or a container contains some water. This is what they will use to lay their eggs. Now here are some of the places where mosquitoes can necessarily lay their eggs. Like we explained earlier on, look at this place, just like a pool. But the water is not moving, it's stagnant, and it's not even clean. So these are places, these are one of the places that mosquitoes can capitalize to lay their eggs in order to multiply. Another place, look at this place also, it's not a decent place, it's not a clean place. As you can see, these are the places where they can lay their eggs. Now, what are some of the signs and symptoms of malaria? That means some of the features that when you realize those features in yourselves, you can suspect that you have malaria. One of them is dark urine. The person, when urinate, the urine becomes so yellowish. That is one of the signs that the person may be suspected to have malaria. Vomiting is also another sign and symptoms of malaria. Unconsciousness is also another sign and symptoms, especially when it is very severe. The person becomes unconscious. When it is very severe, the person becomes unconscious. Loss of appetite. The person loses appetite to eat. That is also another possible sign and symptoms of serious malaria. Shortage of blood, which is also referred to as anemia, which was discussed earlier on. Treatment of malaria. How can malaria be treated? There are some ways in which malaria could be treated. Some of these ways could be traditional, while some could be conventional. That means the use of conventional medicines or the use of local herbs in order to treat malaria. Now, one of the treatment of malaria is by taking chloroquine. This chloroquine could be in a form of a tablet, or it could also be in a form of injection in order to treat malaria. Nevaquine is also another medicine that was used for the treatment of malaria. But in the Gambia, recently, these two are not in most commonly used for the treatment of malaria. They were used before, but not very much in use as of today. You also have Fansida, which is also used for the treatment of malaria. And you have Coartem. Coartem is the modern one, that is the modern drug that is used mainly in the Gambia for the treatment of malaria. In the Gambia today, we use more of Coartem than chloroquine and Nevaquine. The use of local herbs, like I said, it could be use of herbs, which are also sometimes very effective for the treatment of malaria, like, for example, neem, moringa, 3 leaves, neem 3 leaves or moringa 3 leaves. This moringa is locally known as nebedai. It is also used for the treatment of malaria. How? You boil the leaves and drink it. That also can treat malaria. Now, effects of malaria. What are some of the effects that malaria can cause on people, especially pregnant women and young children? Because like I said earlier on, these are the most vulnerable people to this disease, that is malaria, because their immune systems are not very strong at that time in order to fight against the disease. One of the effects is anemia, that is lack of blood. 2, mortality, that is death. Now, if you can recall, malaria was one of the most killer diseases in tropical Africa. It means it was the disease that killed most of the people in the tropical Africa. Effects of malaria. Now, what are some of the effects that malaria could cause on people, especially children and pregnant women? Like I said earlier on, pregnant women and children are the most vulnerable to this disease, which is malaria, because of their low immune system during this period in order to fight against the disease. Now, one of the effects of malaria is anemia, that is lack of blood. Malaria can cause lack of blood to the patient. And 2, mortality, which is death. If we can recall, malaria was one of the most killer diseases in the tropical Africa, especially in the Gambia. And its mortality is very much severe, or is very much common among children under 5 years and also pregnant women. Malaria can also cause stillbirth on pregnant women. Cerebral malaria Abortion. Malaria can also cause abortion, that is premature delivery. It can also cause premature delivery. That means the pregnant woman will give birth before the actual time. Low birth weight babies. Babies born with malaria will have a very low weight. Now, malaria parasite species common in the Gambia. These are some of the malaria parasites species, that is the types, that are very common in the Gambia. We have one, Plasmodium vivax. Plasmodium vivax is one of the types of malaria parasites. We also have Plasmodium ovale, which is also another malaria parasite. We have Plasmodium malariae, and we also have Plasmodium falciparum. These types of Plasmodium is the most deadly parasite of Plasmodium, or the most deadly types of malaria parasites. Now, how can we prevent ourselves from malaria? That is prevention of malaria. One of the ways in which we can prevent ourselves from malaria is using insecticides treated bed nets. That means the bed nets that are already put in chemicals that mosquitoes will not go closer to. And as you can remember, these bed sheets, treated bed sheets, are distributed in the Gambia at no cost in order to fight against the disease. Using insecticides sprays. The use of insecticide sprays also can also prevent ourselves from malaria. This could be, example of this could be Bob spray, can be used. And the other one is using mosquito coils. Example, Montaiga. They can be used in order to prevent ourselves from malaria. Apply mosquito repellents to skin. These are creams that people can apply on their skin in order to avoid the mosquitoes landing on their skin. The use of wire gauze attached to windows and doors. This is by putting these wire gauze around the windows and doors to prevent mosquitoes from entering the house. Regular cleaning exercise can also prevent this. If you can remember, in the Gambia, in the former regime of Yahya Jammeh, there was a monthly cleansing exercise which is called Satsatal. This was meant to minimize the spread of malaria or to minimize the mosquito breeding in our environment. Remove stagnant waters. That is, you remove water that is logging in your environment so that mosquitoes will not use those places to breed or to lay their eggs. Now, the fighting against malaria in the Gambia is not done by the government alone. It's not done by the government alone. Remember, some international organizations are helping in order to fight this disease in the Gambia. And here are some of those organizations that are helping to fight against malaria in the Gambia. One of them is World Health Organization. WHO is one of them. And how do they help? They help in a way of sponsoring programs, either sensitization or giving of treatments to people who are suffering from malaria, and also distribution of treated bed sheets or bed nets, treated bed nets in order to fight against the disease. We have Medical Research Council, MRC. We also have Catholic Relief Services, that is CRS, which is now called Child Fund. We also have Global Funds for AIDS, Tuberculosis, and Malaria. We have Child Fund also, Center for Innovation Against Malaria, which is also another organization. And we have the Association of Youth Against Malaria. You have National Environment Agency. The National Environment Agency, which is a government parastatal, or which is a parastatal body in the Gambia, helping to fight against malaria in the Gambia. Like I said, these organizations will fight against malaria by organizing sensitization programs and also radio programs in order to enlighten people or to educate people about this deadly disease, which is malaria. Now, steps taken to prevent and control malaria in the Gambia, either by government and also these organizations that we've made mention above. What are some of the steps that they take, or what are some of the steps that we are taking by them in order to control, prevent, or to stop or to eradicate malaria in the Gambia? One of those steps are educating and creating awareness in the people about malaria. People must be sensitized to know what is malaria in order to prevent themselves. 2, provision of mosquito bed nets. Like I said earlier on, they provide mosquito bed nets to people at free of charge, so that will help them to prevent the disease. Immunization programs for pregnant women. This is to give medicines to pregnant women that will build antibodies in their system that will help to fight against the disease. And some of these immunization medicines could be Fansida, which is given to pregnant women during their pregnancies in order to prevent them from the disease. Cleaning the environment is also another step, like we used to do in the Gambia. Spraying of mosquito landing sites with insecticides sprays. You spray the areas where mosquitoes land on. And also, we can use motor engine oil to pour it on the stagnant water. This will make the mosquitoes that are in the water not to breathe, and that will cause them to die, and they will not be able to, the eggs also will not be able to hatch in order to develop into new ones. The other method is regular anti-malaria medication that is given to pregnant women and also children. Using screen doors and windows for houses, that is to prevent mosquitoes entering the house. And that does the end of the lesson today. And before I take a leave of you, this is your exercise for this lesson. And here are the questions. Question number 1 reads, malaria is very common in the Gambia during the dash season. Malaria is very common in the Gambia during the dash season. Number 2, malaria is very common in the Gambia. Yes, we said malaria is very common. Now give 2 reasons why malaria is very common in the Gambia, especially during the season that is mentioned in in question number 1 above. Question number 3, malaria is spread by a bacteria called, dash dash. I thank you all for your kind attention. Till we meet again. Thank you.